Hey everyone, it's Natalie Bencavanga, and I am back with my friend and colleague and independent journalist, Nick Valencia, and we are going to be breaking down all the news you need to know surrounding updates about ICE, and we're actually going to end on some good news today, you guys, so stay tuned for that. But today
We get to smile, right?
we do get to smile. You know what, Nick? The thing that I love doing these shows with you is you're kind of like me in the sense that I feel like there's this internal optimist that lives inside of you. And this is so necessary because all of the work that is being done right now by you and so many other wonderful people, it's heavy. And so trying to find that joy when we can is just really important. So thank you for taking time to be with me today. And I know we have a lot of people joining. Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for saying that.
Oh my goodness, it's true. Today is Juneteenth, you guys, and this is a day that commemorates obviously the end of slavery, the real end in the United States, and recognizes the generations of people who fought to make freedom a reality rather than just a promise on a piece of paper. But while many Americans today are celebrating, honoring, and hopefully reflecting on that history, ICE is quietly building a system that many critics say are raising uncomfortable questions about forced labor, modern day slavery here in America.
Yeah.
That's the first thing we're going to talk about, Nick. And then the other stories we're going to touch on, just so everybody knows what's coming today. We're going to talk about the attack on the First Amendment rights as feds are cracking down on Antifa. We're going to talk about this, everybody. Imagine someone in tactical gear approaches you on the street, refuses to identify themselves, covers their faces, and then tries to basically detain and kidnap you. Would you know whether they're a federal agent or just somebody that bought a vest online and is cosplaying? We're going to discuss the impact on that. Then we're going to end on a positive note because ICE warehouses are shutting down, you guys. They're done. They had 11 planned and 7 are now kaput. And that's because of you, all of you out there that are continuing to stand up and say, no, we will not go back. And then we're going to talk a little bit about an exciting event that Nick has coming up on June 3rd. Or 23rd. Woo! We got a lot to do, Nick.
Yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
All right.
It is a lot to talk about. Isn't that something, though, with the ICE facilities? Like my takeaway from it, Natalie, is that it was this coalition and this motion that happened with these unlikely alliances, these awkward alliances. So like I'll zero in on Social Circle. I spent some time there. For those watching, some of you guys may have seen that report. We spent some time with some of the activists there. And they had been joined, like, there's the typical voices in there, the progressive voices, the younger voices, even teaming up with the older kind of Vietnam era progressives. There were also, though, people that voted for President Trump. They voted for his mass deportation policy, but they didn't like how it was being carried out. And then also, and probably even more important to them, they were really concerned about their property values going down once a facility like this got up and running. Now, the progressive side, they were like, hey, look, there weren't any environmental studies done. There were some efforts to be done. That wasn't entirely true, but there wasn't really a case study done or long enough of a time for them to understand the effect on the water resources there, the impact it would be adding 10,000 people to a town of just a few thousand. And so all of these things snowballed into these really awkward and uncomfortable at times alliances that proved to be very effective and efficient, I think, in being a reason why at least one of the 7 is being shut down.
No, I appreciate that. And that's why this is so important, having these conversations and continuing to stand up with our neighbors and educating people on what is going on. Because I have found this to be true with some of the work I've done with Frontline Dignity and my friend Jaime Martinez, that when he actually goes door to door and speaks to people in rural Pennsylvania, he realizes they didn't really know what was going on and they were only being fed a certain amount of propaganda from certain news stations. And so this is a great counterbalance to that. So thank you, everybody, again, for joining us. Let's dive right in, Nick, because this was a story I posted about yesterday and it's been getting a lot of traction on my social media account because I think it's so aggravating and insulting to people that they think we don't know what is going on. For years, immigrant detainees who worked inside ICE detention facilities were paid, wait for this, Nick, a whole $1 a day, okay? So that's not even minimum wage. That's nothing close to anything. That's an insult. But even that now has been removed. ICE has revised its detention center standards after requests, and this is a part that I think goes under the radar a lot, from private prison giant Geo Group. They own most of these facilities, okay, you guys? So our tax dollars are going to this private prison group. And they basically removed the requirement that detainees be paid anything, even as something as pathetic as $1 a day, and added language that detainees are not employees, they're not entitled to wages or benefits under labor laws. And Nick, this is the part I'm curious what you think, because we know, going back to what we were talking about Juneteenth,
Juneteenth, yeah.
the 13th Amendment did abolish slavery and involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted. But what's going on here is immigration detainees have not been convicted of any crimes. This is a civil detention center. Can you tell me a little bit about what you think? I mean, you've been at this issue so intensively and so intimately with people. What are you hearing about this system, and what do you make of what's going on with GEO Group? Excuse
Pretrial
me.
detainees, you hit the nail on the head. They've not been adjudicated. In a lot of cases, they've not even seen a judge yet. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
big thing. They don't even understand that they have the right for a
Mm.
habeas corpus petition, which literally and effectively is bring the body in front of the judge so that they can have their day in court. So thousands and thousands of people, of the estimated 60,000 people, we know that a majority of them are not violent criminals. We know the majority of them were caught because they just basically weren't fast enough to get away. And most of them are not the types of individuals that even the people that voted for this were promised that this administration, by the president himself, that this administration would go after. That's just not the case. And now you're seeing these chain gang type mentality, this, in some cases, the worst prisons that we have in this country are better than the facilities that these people are being taken. Human beings are being taken there. That's what's lost, is that somehow for those that morally justify this, they are not missing they're missing the point that they're being denied basic medical care as a human being. People like I've talked to that have bullets in their bodies, fragments still, and are not seeing the doctor. And then when they're put in these positions, they're forced into what is effectively indentured servitude and forced labor. And they're not even paid for what they're promised. These $2 a day, like you said, pathetic wages, sometimes don't even show up on their commissary. Sometimes don't even show up on their account, rather. And so that's the curious part about all this, is that we're trusting these private prison groups like GEO Group, like CoreCivic, like LaSalle Management. We're trusting them, Natalie, to regulate and hold themselves accountable. And that doesn't work with any sort of position when somebody is coming from a point of power, right?
I mean, that's capitalism in a nutshell. That's unregulated, unfettered capitalism. Why are the people that are told to self-regulate going to do anything of the sort as long as it doesn't impact their bottom line, right? I always talk about the triangle of death. And we got capitalism at the top, and then you got patriarchy and racism on either side. And they all need each other to function. And I truly feel like ICE is the emblematic rotten fruit of that triangle, right? It was exactly where it was intended to go. And Nick, I've been railing against this for many years. Our prison system continues to expand. You know, the United States incarcerates more of its own people than any country in the world.
It's
And now,
profitable, Natalie. It's profitable. They make up so much money.
that's right. And so I think the frustration I'm feeling here is twofold. One, these are human beings, and I think that is completely getting lost in this. And as an aside, you guys, I almost sent Nick a video yesterday about the bullets being lodged, and then I looked at where the video was originating from, and it was from you, Nick. And I started laughing because I was like, my dude is so on it. You know, he knows what's going on. And so that just made me smile, because I'm like, yes, Nick's
I'm
on
laughing,
the top.
not because it's funny, but because I'm the only one that's covering it. Like this guy, everybody covered Carlos Mendoza when he was shot by ICE, but somehow we just move on to the next thing. It literally took his family picking up the phone to call me. They saw me on a segment I did with 50501 Movement with Representative Ro Khanna to talk about similarly what we're talking about here today. And they reached out to me. And so they saw that I cared about this, much like you dedicate time. We're literally, threading the needle here in between halftime to squeeze this in so people can watch a little bit of dose of news in between your U.S. men's national team coverage, right? Because the team that you're rooting for, while you're waving the flag and all these things, just around the corner from every single one of the host cities in the World Cup is an ICE detention facility.
Yeah. And
Whether
I think
it's 12 miles or 80 miles, they're right there in the same state, in the same city.
absolutely. And that's why I do appreciate your work so much, because you're not being intimidated into silence. And that's really the segue into my next point for us to talk about.
Yeah.
Because federal prosecutors earlier this week have indicted 15 people that they say were involved in organized efforts to disrupt ICE operations in Minnesota. Prosecutors are arguing that this case is about criminal conduct, not belief systems. They allege that the defendants coordinated efforts to obstruct immigration enforcement during Operation Metro Surge, including organizing blockades, tracking federal agents. Oh, so they don't like being tracked. Oh, that's interesting. And
Yeah, but they
interfering
could potentially track us. I want to talk
that
about that too.
that part, and interfering with ICE operations. But critics are, of course, calling this out for what it is. That they are basically saying you're going to challenge ICE at your own risk. They're calling the group that they're attacking, the federal prosecutors are attacking, as Antifa, which I talked about earlier this week. Antifa is just short for anti-fascist,
Yeah.
anti-fascism. My grandparents, three of them, Nick, my grandmother and two of my grandfathers, fought in World War II. They were all proud Antifa. You know, my one grandfather was there during the liberation of one of the concentration camps and told me, I'll never tell you any of the scary stories when I was at war because you'd never sleep again. And I think we've lost some of the plot here. So when we're attacking people for being Antifa, it does twofold. It intimidates us and makes us afraid to speak out, but it also outs the government as being pro-fascist. What do you make of
And
all
they're
this?
right? You can't believe in something unless accept that it exists. And so
Right.
there you are. Here you are, this fascist government that does fascist things. And I
Hmm.
don't think when people think about this, they get caught up in a time of yesteryear, but it's
Yeah.
you know things that are the same under a new banner. Fascism
Hmm.
doesn't look always like Hitler and a guy with a little
Right.
mustache, or Mussolini. It doesn't look like death camps always. It looks like the day after Don Lemon was arrested, that myself and other independent journalists like you are on the phone with each other, being
Hmm.
like, hey, what's our plan? What's our
Hmm.
plan in case we get a knock on the door? Fascism is going out to these protests and expecting that and being naive to accept that we have these certain protections and liberties as journalists in this great country of ours. But
Hmm.
now that's being rotted away, it's being dismantled, and it's being normalized to attack it. And then and they're so good, this administration specifically, I think governments generally, but this administration specifically is so good at controlling the narrative, controlling the message, and really dominating the marketing behind it all, so to
Yeah.
speak. They make it seem like these are the problem. These demonstrators who are speaking up against these fascist tactics on the streets of Minneapolis, and they blanket turn them anti-fascist to justify
Hmm.
these actions. When we know, Natalie, that they have
Hmm.
broadened the scope of definition of what it means
Right.
to interfere in a federal operation to include filming a federal agent while they're conducting their operation. That what do you mean? That's what we are allowed to do.
Literally.
If this
Hmm.
happened right here outside of our front, my front door here, and I filmed from my home or from a public place, I have every right to be there.
Yeah.
And so they're really, though, broadening that definition, and they used that recently to reignite a flame and rekindle, something that was already, the embers were still there in Minnesota, and
Hmm.
now you're seeing, violence again tick back up.
Yeah, I think, what's very concerning to me about all of this is how it's a lot of do as I say, not as I do, because once again, they don't want us recording, but they can record
Yeah.
us through these flock cameras, through all of these surveillance, through these AI data centers that they're building.
Rules for thee, but not for me.
That's
Don't
right.
worry, I'm not the evil witch doctor behind it. Don't worry. Trust me. You could trust me to be righteous about this, sure.
If
Right?
someone ever says you can trust me, guys, don't trust them. That's just like that's the first thing. Like, let's just start there, right? But none of this is happening in a silo, right? We're seeing the rise of fascism very blatantly in our country in a way we haven't seen so openly, right? It's always been there, but this I'm talking about so openly. We're seeing the
Correct.
the building of these huge detention facilities in the name of public safety. Everything's always in the name of public safety. And then, of course, we're seeing the AI data centers and the rise of the trillionaire, the rise of the multi-billionaire tech bro. None of this operates in isolation. When you look at all of
No.
this, Nick, from sort of the 30,000 view, what really pops for you in terms of putting on your journalist hat and being like, oh, this is the threat I see?
Yeah, is that we could start with the trillionaire that, okay, sure, you can say this is what a great country, you can achieve this level, this status, but he didn't do it on his own. I think the reason that we got here is because of all the deregulation and the tax breaks for the wealthy. And then it can't be lost on us, Natalie, that this is a man that looked under the hood of the government with a government pass to do whatever he wanted. And then all of a sudden, he's the richest man in the world by leaps and bounds.
Mm.
Bezos is closer to the wealth of you and me, or closer to the wealth of somebody on Skid Row than he is closer to the wealth of Elon Musk. To go from $1 billion to
Woo!
$1 trillion is like a huge leap.
Wow.
I don't think people really understand just how much money this man has
Mm.
and what can be done with that. Why do we still have all of these issues? Where are the remedies to these problems when you realize we have these AI things that don't tread on me, folks? This is what really, I'm confused by this. You
Hmm.
have people that want less government, and yet they're okay with the surveillance state if it goes and catches an illegal. They don't mind the flock cameras because ICE is using them to get rid of the bad hombres. Meanwhile, you're establishing this network or this nexus of people that could watch you too. I don't even like
And
going out on
are.
my deck knowing that a camera's pointing at me, and I'm not doing anything in my home just to know that I
Yeah.
feel uncomfortable that the camera's there. I haven't even told my wife that. I haven't said that out loud, but Rach, I feel uncomfortable that I'm like, that the camera's there and I'm not doing anything wrong. But
Right.
we're accepting now that these cameras who are in control of who
Mm.
our data is going where? You've been so good at following this. I'm curious to think, to ask what you think about this expansion and how Atlanta is one of the most surveilled cities in the world at this point.
Well, I have to tell you, and I appreciate you sharing your vulnerability and your honesty in that topic. I'll say this first before I get into the surveillance issue, because once again, I think it goes hand in hand. I am ashamed to live in the country that has the first trillionaire. That's a policy failure, right? The fact that we haven't
Yeah.
ended poverty in the United States, but we have a trillionaire, that is a shameful statement, right? And we see the consolidation of power and money into fewer and fewer hands. And then, of course, there's going to be more surveillance on the rest of us. Because guess what, guys? They're a little afraid because they know deep down they shouldn't have all
Mm,
this money. This is not a good look
mm,
for them. The French Revolution was not that long ago. Like there's some things that they can look to historically and be like, oh, this is why we need to keep an eye on all of you. And to your
wow.
point, so I just I was away for a week. And I tried to be offline, Nick. I really tried. I did watch some of your stuff, and then I kept telling myself, Natalie, be on
It's so
vacation.
hard to be
Be on vacation.
offline though,
I
right?
know,
It's so hard.
especially right now. So I was in Coligny Beach in South Carolina, which is in
Yeah.
Hilton Head, and it's one of my favorite places to just be. And it's so chill there. And on our last day, my husband and I were walking the beach, and I looked up, and David looked up, and we went, "Is that camera new?" And Nick, and the minute
Wow.
Nick that I said it, my husband goes, "Oh no, here she goes." So I walked over
Is
to
that when you filmed the video?
yes, and that's why the sound quality was so bad. I'm so sorry, everyone. I did not have my sound equipment. I
The
got a lot of
point was
messages.
made.
The point, yes, heard. But like I said, I was on vacation. So anyway, I go up to a lifeguard and I asked her, I said, "Hey, I'm a journalist based in Pittsburgh, but I'm here on vacation. I just noticed this huge surveillance, operation happening." And she was pissed too. And she was like, "Yeah, I don't know what that is. And that's new. That just came out this morning. And it's coming from Beaufort." Okay, I'm still butchering the name because I
Beaufort,
got,
yeah, Beaufort,
yeah,
South Carolina, yeah.
thank you. I got yelled at for that too. So we're trying here, everybody. We're just trying.
Hey, hey, hey! Right there, really quick aside. It's not your fault. They take
Thank you.
names of a city, and then I said Ponce de Leon when I moved here, and they're like Ponce de Leon. You mean so? Okay, it's not your
Okay,
fault.
but you named it correctly. So apparently that sheriff's department was the one that installed it. So then I went over to the
Wow.
beach patrol guys and I asked them, "Hey, did you guys know about this?" Because they have actual beach patrol, and I get that. And they were like, "Yeah, we weren't privy to it either." And then I was like, "Hmm." So then I posted about it, and me oh my, I have over almost 300,000 views on it at this point, which
Oh my
it's always
god.
the
Wow.
videos you don't expect and you're not
Right.
prepared.
No, good for you. That's why consistency matters. You keep posting stuff, and then something
Exactly.
pops because this is catching the attention, I'm sure, of a
Well,
wide audience. Right?
to
Yeah.
your point, because there's so few boots on the ground doing this work, I had so many people thank me because they live in South Carolina. They didn't know. Everybody was tagging the sheriff. Everybody was tagging their council people, etc. But here's the part that I didn't think about. And I'm curious what you make of this. I had so many mothers DM me that said to me, who is keeping this information of my children in their bathing suits on the beach? And that's the thing. So then I looked into it. It's a third party. So who are these private companies that we're just handing over,
Our
information,
data
all of this
and our
data, and
information.
it's sensitive information of little kids
Yeah.
in their bathing suits. Why, Nick? So I bring all of this up
That's
because
scary.
it is. And to your point of not even wanting to be on your own porch, this isn't who
Yeah.
we are. We are also entitled to a level of privacy, even in public. And
Yeah,
so
this
think
is
about
not
that.
walking freely or living freely or
No.
being free. That's not what the definition is. That's really eerie. I don't think
Yes.
that's I had just started doing this work into the flock cameras probably back in February when I found out that Walmart was quietly behind and funding these community grants to police departments and police foundations specifically for flock cameras and for them to be installed. As I'm starting to unravel this, you get to
Mhm.
you start kicking enough rocks and dust will, come
Oh,
up.
yeah.
Flock reached out to me and they wanted to have a conversation because, again, one of my stories as well, it did some numbers like
Hmm.
yours. It was about
Hmm.
a camera that had just gone up that I realized had just gone up in my neighborhood here nearby. And the next thing I know, I was getting a direct message from somebody who was friends with I don't even know what kind of leadership position this person has, but high enough up. And they said, hey, with your platform and your good faith reporting, we really
Mm.
want you to know what the reality is of how this is used. And so if we could have always an off the record conversation they want to have
Sure.
to give their
Right.
side. Walmart wanted to do the same thing. And so anyway, I told them I'd reach back out to them. And so this is as I'm learning all of this and sort of doing more stories and more reporting. Henry County, Leah Page, one of our followers here. Henry County is right here in Georgia. Flock is
Hmm.
based here in Georgia. These cameras are going up more and more as sort of a testing ground. Forget like the robot dogs that the Atlanta Police
Right.
Department has, which I'm told don't really work well if you accidentally spill pickle juice on them. I don't know. That's what
Oops.
I just heard. Oops. But
And I do
what I'm
love
told
pickles.
what I'm told is that this is now one of the most surveyed cities in the world now,
Yeah.
as I say that as a Waymo car goes by here, which they always do, they always come by here with their cameras, right? It really creeps me out as a father
Yeah.
because I've deliberately and intentionally taken my kids off the internet,
Yeah.
as this is not all good things are when you start have a platform that grows, and one of
That's
the
right.
bad things of this all is that people want to do harm to me and my family.
Yep.
And I don't wanna take the chance or parse through all the comments about all the ugly shit that people say, and it's just
Mm-mm.
safer for me to just take my kids off of and I love
Yeah.
my kids. Part of my
Of
great
course.
joy in life, I think one of
But you're
man, I'm
allowed to
more
have that for yourself.
yes,
That,
and people
that,
should be allowed to have this privacy, right? People
yes.
should be, and we don't
Yes.
now. We don't.
And I think that's, I don't share many pictures of my family or even my friends. I never put
Yeah.
anybody's child ever on my page, ever. And I've encouraged all of my friends to also take their children off of all media. One, because your child doesn't have agency over its own image. It can't consent to any of it anyway. It's
We're
our
seeing
job to
those
protect
lawsuits
that.
now, right?
We
Those kids
sure
that sued
are.
their parents. We
We
saw
sure
them
are.
start a couple years ago.
Yes. And because of this situation with this public surveillance, like I just said, we don't know who's privy to this information. And that's really a segue into this next conversation, because not only do
Yeah.
we not know who has this information, but we're not even sure who's an actual ICE agent at this point. So imagine somebody in tactical gear, which I know you've seen this firsthand, approaching people on the street. They refuse to identify themselves. They've have their faces covered, and then they're trying to detain or kidnap people. How do you know who they are? And this has been a story that NBC News reported on a few weeks ago, and I wanted to bring it back up because I feel like the news cycle is moving so quickly. We're not capturing all of the pieces of this puzzle, because as ICE operations continue to expand, reports of people impersonating immigration agents are also surging. And this is creating confusion and fear in particular around vulnerable immigrant groups, because now they're facing a double threat: the fear of immigration enforcement itself and criminals exploiting that fear by pretending to be ICE agents. So we're seeing a rise of robberies, assaults, and intimidations. Advocates are warning that confusion over who is or who isn't a federal officer is very much creating a tempest in a teapot. When you hear this, Nick, because you are so closely tied to so many immigrant stories, what do you make of not just the threat of ICE, but the threat of people impersonating ICE? And how serious do you think this is?
It's very real, and we've seen cases of it caught on video. In fact, one of the stories that went viral from Minnesota, outside in broad daylight, we saw somebody who was not sanctioned for the kind of he wasn't he was acting like an ICE agent and he wasn't, and he pulled a gun on somebody out there, and he's been charged. He's facing charges now because of that. He was taken
Yeah.
into custody. More though, more so concerning is to bring the conversation back all the way around to these ICE facilities and these private companies, Geo Group. They're not just owners of these private
That's right.
prisons. They are also now expanding into the bounty hunter program, where now, according to my reporting, 404 Media Group's
Hmm.
reporting, The Intercept, Geo Group has expanded into bounty hunter third party agencies, hiring them as subcontractors to go after migrant children. So, children, teenagers, it could be younger than that, preteens that are missing or can't be found, and the government is hiring now uh, a contractor who is then now hiring a subcontractor. Who are
Mm.
these people that are going out there to go get some of the most vulnerable in our world? I'm a parent. I think we
Mm.
start protecting the most vulnerable, and that means we start with kids. And now,
That's right.
not only are we giving a third party agency that has part of the surveillance state interwoven in its DNA the access to kids in these really compromising, potentially compromising photos? Who the hell knows where we're going with this? And now we're
Hmm.
also giving these private prison groups that are making billions and billions of dollars, their earnings calls, they brag about economic growth being entered because of Trump's immigration policy and deportation policy. And now those contractors are subcontracting January Sixers, Enrique Tallarico. Like, who the fuck are these people that are out there? I'm serious. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Who I don't think anyone knows. And this is something, as you talk about things that are underreported,
Hmm.
there's so much crazy that goes on that we get, oh my God, okay, we need to talk about this and that. You just reminded me of my own reporting, right?
I think I
It's like,
used your reporting in a video I did like months ago on, because you just like made me think about it. Like, I think that was your stuff that
right,
because that's what I mean. Like this news cycle, guys, we're in this all the time and we can't even
yeah.
digest
And
this.
we
And
can't even digest it.
and that's the point, right? You flood the zone so you can create chaos, confusion, so you can even question your own words and thoughts and reporting and go, wait, did I say there was that? That's the whole
Yeah.
point. And they know that because most of this stuff isn't going to stick, but the stuff that will, it's hard to tease it out and tether what is real and what isn't. And that is really part of the fascist
So
playbook.
true.
That we're experiencing. Okay, you
It
guys.
creates this atmosphere of confusion where you even
Yes.
question what truth is, right? And
Mm.
that's the fear with this rise of technology. I think it's not so much that somebody's going to create a deep fake of Natalie or me.
Mhm.
It's that they are going to start creating and chipping away of what we believe. And
Yeah.
so it's not that not only are we going to maybe potentially believe the alternate reality, but that we won't believe what is real. Like, oh
Mm.
my God, that sounds crazy. What is Nick and Natalie talking about? Third party contractors, bounty hunters? What the fuck? I'm going to go watch the men's national team because it's soccer time again, right? Like,
Yeah.
this stuff is happening and we're not crazy and we're in it
Yeah.
and we're trying to amplify what is happening. And I think that everyone that's on here knows exactly, how I don't think that they get the straight information anymore from the mainstream. There once
No.
was a time, I think, that you could really count and rely, and it was
Yeah.
consistently reliable. And now you've got to even question, why aren't they talking about flock cameras? Why aren't they talking about Carlos Mendoza being shot and still suffering like this? Why aren't they talking
Mhm.
about indentured servitude and the $2 a day stuff?
Yeah.
That to me is the most telling part of why what we're doing, things like this, why it matters so much.
Absolutely, because we aren't paid and bought for by the billionaire class, right? Like, sorry,
No.
guys, that's not a thing. So
Well, that if it is a thing, it's not coming here.
it's not coming here anyway. I
I'll
don't know.
tell you though, there's money out there and people will like
Oh,
I
I
think I've
know.
mentioned this to you. I've turned down the DNC from being
Yes.
part of this super secret signal group. I turned
Yes.
down, it turns out, the government of Israel that wanted to sponsor me to go to Israel on a trip there,
Wow.
that reached out through a Latino organization. I've turned
Mm.
down other things that I just didn't think were the right move. You know, it
And
was
I
money.
so appreciate
Yeah,
that. And I'm right there with you in the sense
I
that,
know you are.
I'm not sleeping on what did I say to my husband? We're not sleeping on thousand thread sheet, cotton, but I sleep well. You know what I
Egyptian
mean?
cotton.
But I'm sleeping well at the same time on my, whatever brand. Okay, so on that point, because I know you mentioned the soccer, and guys, I'm the only person that doesn't pay attention to sports, so I know that we're like in a moment of time here that I've got to wrap this up. But I do. I do want to keep us on a positive note as we end, because things are happening because of the work of independent journalists like Nick and myself and so many others, and because of, like I said, people like you guys that are amplifying this work, supporting this work, and just asking why and showing up. According to a big report that just was released by the New York Times and a couple of other spaces too, uh, after spending enormous sums of money and facing local opposition, legal challenges, and logistical problems, the federal government is abandoning plans for multiple warehouse detention sites across the nation. The Department of Homeland Security, oh, this is major, is abandoning plans to convert seven of the 11 warehouses that it recently purchased. The warehouse initiative was part of a massive 38 billion tax dollars detention expansion plan launched under former DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, aimed at dramatically increasing capacity. But the federal government spent roughly 11 billion acquiring vacant industrial properties, but they have since faced many obstacles, including zoning restrictions, environmental concerns, inadequate infrastructure lawsuits, and intense opposition. Nick, we talked about this at the top of the show,
But
but if
there's
you
not
joined
enough
us
for your
late,
school art program, right? For your kids' school. There's not enough for your.
all of that. All of that. No, listen, we're talking real time reactions, you guys. We're giving it to you, the visceral stuff. Okay. I literally, I love it. So Nick, when you've already started talking about it, but when you hear this, because we don't see or hear many wins right now. And to me, this is indicative of a potential shift in not just public opinion, but how that public opinion is actually turning from ideas into dollars and cents. What do you make of this, and what are you hearing? Because I know one of these you've been focused on very intimately with your work.
Yeah, I think there are these unlikely alliances that if we're willing and open to have, are there to meet us. Maybe not in the middle, but they're there to meet us on an issue.
Yeah.
And that good faith exchange of ideas can really lead to major victories and major wins, like what we saw in
Mm-hmm.
Social Circle.
Mm-hmm.
Social Circle, Georgia is a place that I focused some reporting on. I went down there and spent some time with activists. And if you followed my reporting at NVN, you remember. And we went down there and did a live show. And what they told me is that they were teaming up with people that voted for President Trump because of his immigration policy. But they were really concerned with their home value and how it was going to
Yeah.
be impacted and drop potentially if this facility went in their backyard. They started to come to the table on an issue that they became open and willing to accept that, all right, maybe we disagree as to why this facility shouldn't stay open, but like, let's put that aside. We both agree that this shouldn't exist here. So like, let's focus on that rather than focus on, you think the worst of the worst are coming here and you're worried about your property taxes. These folks over here are worried about the humanity of it because they know
Yeah.
what goes on in these concentration camps, full stop. Because they are, not only by technical definition, but also by what happens in there. No, they're not
Mm-hmm.
death camps. People do die in there, though. And what is happening is that people are denied basic medical access. We all see the shaky cell phone videos. We all see those clips that go
Mm-hmm.
viral. Few of us see what happens or know about what happens after the cell phone recording ends and the people get thrown in the back of the unmarked van or in the back of the federal vehicle. They end up in a really horrible place where cruelty is the point, where you have people that are asking for voluntary detention that don't get the opportunity to go home because there's so much money to be made behind this. I think the big takeaway and like why this is a huge win is that using your voice matters. 180,000 calls got Liam Conejo Ramos home, unlikely alliances and people calling their reps, writing their lawmakers. That got
Mm.
these facilities, not just in Social Circle, but all across the country, stopped and shut down. If you make enough noise and you get together as a group, there's a lot more of us than there are of them.
Oh,
I think that that's what
absolutely.
you have to understand, and that's what I took away from this, and that's hopeful. I mean,
Mhm.
to close on this, it's Juneteenth. This is the official day of end of slavery. I was walking hand in hand with my 5-year-old son talking about there was a time when people were treated as property.
Mhm.
And that meant that they owned you like you own your toys and could do whatever you want with them. That's not okay, but it was the law that it was okay. Because 'cause we're learning
Mhm.
about presidents. I'm trying to plant the seed in him that just because something is a law doesn't make it right, and that we need to have our own moral compass and constitution, because there's gonna be people that tell us what is right and wrong, but we need to know inside
Yeah.
morally what that is, and I'm building that moral compass in my 5-year-old son so that hopefully
Awesome.
he gets these seeds and says, "Wait a minute, there was a law that said it was okay to own people? No, that's not okay." Fast forward to 2026. Wait a minute, there's a law that says, if you cross this, you're illegal and they could beat the hell out of you and treat you like shit? No, mijo, that's not okay, and that's why daddy is out there, and that's why we're on this show right now. Because
Mhm.
we care about this and we know that legality doesn't equal morality. We know that you can't get the news from the news anymore. And
Yeah.
so, I'm on here with this show. I know I'm long-winded, but I'll finish.
It's okay.
I'm on
I
this
love
show
it.
with you, Natalie, because I truly believe people say they're independent journalists. Like, I watch you, I share your stuff, not just because I like you, but because I like your ethics.
Thank
I
you.
see you and I'm getting to know you more. I really believe when you say I'm an independent journalist and this is what I stand for. There's a lot of people out there that, like, I don't know, man. I'm not the one that's supposed to regulate it. I'm not the journalist. You're a journalist here, but I'm telling you, one journalist to another, like, respect. And I see you, and thank you for giving me the platform to have some agency here on this platform in this show.
Oh my oh my goodness. Wow. Guys, he didn't pay, I didn't pay him to say any of that, just so we're all clear. Speaking
As
of
I'm
ethics.
counting my money in the back, right?
Yeah, all those dollars. Uh, no, all kidding aside, my therapist would say, stop using humor to deflect when someone says something nice to you. Okay, so I so appreciate that, and right back at you. And that's why I am just so glad that we've connected. And I'll just add this because you said it all so beautifully. I don't need to say much, but I just want to say, it's not about what people deserve. It's about who do we want to be as a society. And I don't want to be a society that punishes people in this way for the crime of wanting a better life. That I don't want to be a society that dictates to people how they can pursue their life and their version of happiness. I don't want to be a society that is trying to control the masses through AI deepfakes and disinformation because they are afraid, right? I believe that we all make decisions from two core places. It's either you make them out of fear or out of love. And if you're making decisions out of fear, we're going to continue to see the data centers being built and the environment being destroyed and power being concentrated and people being kidnapped. But if you make decisions out of love, love in action is justice. And I think we can create a more equitable world if we choose. And I'm really bummed because I can't be in Minneapolis with you on June 23rd in the crowd watching you, super excited, because you are doing the real work, my friend, and you're going to have a live event where we're going to be able to hear directly from the people who found themselves on the front lines of one of the biggest constitutional fights in America. Nick, talk a little bit about this event. And I think you said it's like a 160-person theater. I mean, that's so exciting. Tell us
We
about it.
had in our first event in LA at the Montebello Food Hall, shout out to the Boulevard Market, Barney Santos. We had 60 people show up for an NVN show live.
Awesome.
It's just it's our show that I do here remotely, but we take it in person. The main theater, the main cinema, it's a metro hub. It is a cultural hub in downtown Minneapolis, and they saw the worth and value in partnering with me. And so we are taking our show to you. We're going to have a show in front of a live studio audience, in front of a theater, 190-seat theater. We're selling tickets at mspfilm.org. You can get them for pre-sale, $5, $10 at the door. I mean, if you show up, we're going to let you in. You know, it's not even about making money for this.
Right.
We really wanted to bring the conversation because I think at the end of the day, we're talking about fascism and it wants us isolated. It wants us feeling like we are
That's right.
alone and alone in this fight. So, in the spirit of that and things really being artificial, I thought one of the remedies of tomorrow is getting people together. And we're going to have a great lineup. We have Nakima Levy Armstrong, former president of the NAACP in Minneapolis, former mayoral candidate. We have Ahmed bin Hassan. He's from that viral video confronted by Greg Bovino outside of the Minneapolis airport, where he stood face to face with fascism and won. And then we had Will Kelly up until about an hour ago, but he had a family emergency. He was he is the woke farmer. He just beat a federal case. It turns out that it's not illegal to say "fuck you, Nazi" to the feds. He beat that case in Washington,
Well, thank
D.C. So he was supposed to be rounding out our lineup. I just found that out literally right before coming on this show. So we're gonna work through it. We're gonna find somebody to fill that space, and it's gonna be somebody that's awesome and somebody there locally. And it's June 23rd, so go mspfilm.org. Solo el pueblo salva el pueblo. Only the people save each other. One night only event. I'm your host. Come see me, meet me, vibe out afterwards, hang. We'll get to know each other, and I can't wait. It's going to be really cool.
That sounds amazing. You got my wheels turning on ideas for us now. So sorry, now that we're friends, that's what happens. I'm gonna be texting you later.
I would love a co-host. This is really hard to do in person.
Yes. I love this plan. You guys heard it first. Now he asked you. No, I'm just kidding. Nick, I always appreciate you so much. And you guys, we're going to continue to do these regularly, either every week or every other week, depending on our, Nick's schedule and my schedule. But we're down for continuing the conversation together. I think there's a lot to continue to grow and build and absorb as communities. And I just want to thank you again, Nick, for the incredible work that you do and the way that you partner and be in community with people and center the most vulnerable among us. So thank you so much. And guys, get tickets. I'll put a link in the Substack as well.
Yes, please go get tickets, show up, promote it, help me market it, push it out. Minneapolis, see ya.
Awesome.
Thanks, Natalie.
Bye, you guys.
Take care. Bye.